Welcome to the Angelscapes podcast, where you're encouraged to uncover and develop a direct connection with your soul's power, wisdom, and spiritual intuition that is ready to blossom. We'll explore new ideas, compelling tips, and real steps to help you learn simple spiritual practices. We're a safe place to learn more about accessing your soul's power with education and spiritual wholeness that could bring more clarity to your life. Now here's your host, a practicing medium, Akashic Records practitioner, spirit artist, coach, and mentor, Dr. Reverend Nancy Smith.
Do you have glimmers of joy? And what can you do to induce a soothing, calming response to your poor, tired nervous system? Hello, this is Angelscapes, and I am your host, Nancy Smith. Joining me in this episode is Reverend Raena Wilson, who is a shamanic spiritual guide for a conversation about creating joy in your life as a remedy for healing trauma. She teaches a concept she calls glimmer to recognize glimmers of joy, glimmers of pleasure, deep beauty, and peace that enhance and encourage well-being, as well as reduce stress. We can often find them in moments of appreciation and connection, whether with yourself, with others, with community, especially in nature and especially in spirit. So welcome to Reverend Raena Wilson. And you can find her on thepearlsflame.com if you want to look her up while we're talking. And I'm really excited to talk about glimmer because I saw you talking about it on Facebook once, and it was just terrific. I loved it, and I wanted to know more. So I thought I wouldn't be the only one that wanted to know more. So what is your work? What is this work about?
This topic of glimmers, this concept, the term glimmer was coined by Deb Dana in the field of somatic therapy. She's someone who brought a lot of practical applications of another person's work, Steve Porges, which is the polyvagal theory. And so provides like a framework for neuroinformed somatic therapy.
What does somatic mean? Could you define
somatic? So it's a way of somatic therapy will be a way of tuning into the body's signals and cues, and it's your state of being through your felt senses. And so we're developing awareness more and more to tune into the body's experience, the felt experience. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. It sounds very, very nice. I've been seeing that word around a lot, and I wanted to get a deeper or a clearer or simpler explanation of what that was. But it sounds like it's a very strong body, mind, spirit connection. Semantic.
Right. In this, it's a field that's seems to be becoming more mainstream. I studied it, let's see, back in 2009, 2010, 2011, 2012. And back then, for me to say that word, it was a very foreign concept to other people, and I just get like, maybe like crickets or blink blinking. But it's kind of very cool to see it become more and more mainstream. And you saw me talk about glimmers on Facebook, and so I just that was a post I wanted to bring forward to bring like grounded foundation to that concept, because sometimes like concepts can become more like buzzwords, and they're not really the information isn't propagated, that in a grounded way. And so people can miss like how to meaningfully implement in their lives.
Right. Yeah. So glimmers are moments of joy. So.
Oh, yes. So going back to that word, coined by Deb Dana, as an experience that's a moment of joy. It's the opposite of a trigger, actually. And so it's and it doesn't, even if it's just a drop of joy or feel an experience of like pleasure or peace, right? It induces a calming effect or a soothing effect on the nervous system, and it helps bring someone more into a state of being able to be in connection, which is important for healing. Right, and also for regulating one's experience in a challenging situations where a trigger calls forward a stress response in the nervous system.
Right. So what does this is the opposite of trigger, but let's talk a little bit. So for instance, triggers, you're walking into a meeting and there's somebody or a situation there that triggers you when you're 3 years old and you're freaking out and you're anxious. What would a glimmer be? Where would a glimmer show up? Can you call the glimmers in?
Right. So if sometimes triggers can overtake us because it's like it's being driven by an unconscious process in our body, right? And sometimes if depending on how far we are in our healing track, or our resolving our unresolved stresses and traumas and chronic tensions, we can have any amount of awareness of what's going on in our system. So if we have an awareness of what's happening in our body as a trigger and can identify it as a trigger in the moment, we can then also call in something to self-soothe, right? Or just identify what we need in the moment in order to create a soothing response and or connection in our experience. And one way to do this is to call in or identify one's own sort of like medicine bag of glimmers, right? So that's one of the things we could do as we're going through our healing process, like is to find a way of practicing and identifying what our personal glimmers are. Like for me, it's like this really like even though I can feel my body and I'm thinking of it, right? It's just like a candied coffee concoction, right? Really just brings me pleasure. So, that's one thing I can do if I think of in a moment of, like a little bit of stress, or like if I'm going through my day and I know it's going to be just like kind of taxing. I just start my day with that, feel good moment. I create it, I make the coffee, and I just have a deep appreciation for it. And it's really interesting, like as an example, just knowing that's part of like one of my, you know, places of finding joy, and it's simple. And a friend wound up, just noticing that. And every time I see that friend, they just make me the coffee without even asking me. And it's like a concoction that's intuited in the moment. And it's like, now I have a deeper association of appreciation of joy because, it's a moment of connection. So that's, connection is healing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so like joy really is an important element of healing as well. I know, when we move in, sort of these wellness circles, there can be a concentration on talking about one's trauma and a lot of focus on this. Yeah. Digging in, into the, that, what is actually in naming what's happening in one's, that's stressing one's system. And one of the things also is to help, as a healer, to help the person sort of build, internalize, or sort of internal scaffolding or support of bringing in joy and remembering connection as part of the process. It's kind of a dance. So
Yeah. So if you're making a glimmer bag, I love that concept. She says, I make a glimmer bag, and in your glimmer bag is that special coffee, and then your friend. But then your friend started making the special coffee. So, oh my God,
it just makes it all, another level of, understanding, the joy.
So let's walk. If you're teaching somebody how to make their glimmer bag, let's start with there. Where would you start? They're kind of sad. They're kind of tired out, and what would you say?
It's interesting. So as a process, I'm not so much, as a sort of an embodiment, somatos, shamanic healer. I'm really an experiential process with clients, right? And I'm not so much instructing them from the mindset, and I'm sort of, at some points when there's opportunity, I might explain, a knowledge set, however, if someone's in an experience, I'll meet them right where they're at. And, the first thing is creating safety. right, for the person, and then just attuning to what's what their felt experience is. And when we say attuning, it's like being able to understand their experience in a sort of like a grounded way that's correct for them, and it's like being in the same context as them, and understanding the energy and being able to respond appropriately to it.
Right.
So,
So
so
that's
going through the process, we're tuning, and if I part of it is to meet them right where they're at, because there's wisdom in the experience they're having of sadness. That's also an emotional life force energy that helps us, bring information to what might be in the moment, or has a connection to the past that's alive in the moment for the person. And so allowing them to be there with support helps them to start to, little by little, start to ground into the wisdom of what's coming up for them, and to move that life energy out, or the emotional energy out, which is what it's meant to do, right? We're meant to express our emotions, not stuff them down. Right? They just get stored in the cells, and that's how we have a lot of unresolved tensions, right?
yeah.
One of the ways. And if I see there's an opportunity for bringing in support, I might help them understand identify what they need, and call in that feeling sense of what would help meet that need, identify that, and also be in connection with them. And maybe at some points I might bring, part of my playful nature, to sort of ground, this sort of joy experience. But I'm not going to be there like, oh, it's time to find joy in what you're going through. That's not how it works. It's not really mental process or intellectual process that we're wagging fingers at people and helping them. We're helping them feel supported and start to internalize support more and more, and that's what's going to help resolve those unresolved tensions and traumas.
Right. Well, so it's an organic process.
Yeah,
Take people where they are, you meet them where they are, and move through them, and then you look for opportunities that will naturally show up.
exactly. Yeah, and tuning to their process, and um, seeing where the opportunities are, and openings for a little bit of maybe pressure to grow, or maybe they do need to just stay where they're at, just to understand, right, and gain the wisdom there.
I know, I'm sure you do too, but I know people who have a habit
Yeah,
of sadness, or a habit of anxiety, or a habit
right.
of oh, you name it, and pessimism. What could be
Yes.
one? So how could this concept, we're not necessarily dealing with somebody's deep trauma, as we're much talking to them about your habits are taking you to this pathway, to
Right.
this end. How about this pathway to the other end? How would you approach that?
When I approach this kind of situation, because people can get into the habit of the negative, attention, and that they've received, and then starting to express it, and being in that sort of energy pattern. And so the first thing is really connect to them again, right where they're at. And so there's that and part, right? And I might even name, this sounds like a habit. If I've like worked with them for a while, I might just identify it, like name it. Sometimes, and I might say you're doing that. I'll be more like, yeah, sometimes people can get into a habit of, just running that same old program. And it can be kind of useful to start, if we want to be happy, um, if we want to start to feel change in our lives, like, because I hear people will say this, I just want to be happy. And I'm like, yeah, so yes, we can get into this habit of the sadness or the angst, and that happiness is going to take practice and conscious effort to start to like slowly move our nervous system out of that, sort of recycling energy, and more into an evolving type of energy, or resolving energy. And so it's a conscious it takes a conscious effort to also call in like those little moments that might help one feel joy for just even a second. Like you only need a little drop of that joyful experience to help start the process. We only need a gossamer thread of resilience to get through our stuff to like keep the healing process moving.
Yeah, it sounds like a practice. Like often I've said many times, meditation practice or practice of happiness or practice of, now we can have a practice of joy.
Yes, yeah, and like just even having, in those meditative moments, just calling in like any felt memories that where you felt joy and connection and deep well-being. So maybe it was with a loved one, a grandmother, or the spirit, or fur baby, or by the ocean, any
Yeah.
of these.
I have different things that make me happy. Well, I have grandkids. So one of the things that I do when especially when I'm stressing out and my brain has gone foggy, is I have pictures of them.
Yeah,
And I'll just start sorting through the pictures and looking at them. And um another couple other things that I do is smells, certain smells.
yes,
Some people are really big into aromatherapy, which I use aromatherapy, but there are certain smells just around the house
right,
and calming. And
yeah,
what are some other things and I feel like those reactions that I have, I'm telling myself a different story.
right,
um so the anxiety maybe came from, I have to deliver this and I have this project to finish, or blah blah, my goals were this and I'm not making my goals, take me to this anxiety. And so then I this, maybe this is what glimmers up, but I'll take a break from all of it,
yeah.
and I'll pick up, even picking up pastels and making a mess on a piece of paper.
Right, right. And
Yeah.
you say the word telling myself a different story, and it's like in my work, I also want to encourage feel a different experience, right? Let it be an integrative type of experience rather than, just trying to use intellectual will to overcome an experience.
Exactly. Yeah, that's picking up the pastels is
Yep,
making do something. Looking at the pictures of the kids, it brings some kind of grandmother response, chemical
yeah,
response, or
that's
what
beautiful. Yeah,
it's. But I have to stop doing what I'm doing. Really,
right,
just really, if you're gonna take a break, take a break. But
right.
but I when I'm trying to figure out something really heavy duty, um, somebody's told me some really deep stuff, or even just coming off of a reading, a
Hmm.
session with
Yeah,
somebody, I have to reset
yeah, right.
the
Yeah,
heart and
right.
the body and stuff like that. Feel like we're talking a little bit about that. You have a lot of really interesting things about neuroception um and part of our nervous system that's scanning for the environment cues for danger and helps our body respond before thought process to dangerous situations happen. Sounds like the fight or flight we can get ourselves into. How
Right.
do you work with people on that, and what are some of your
Again, it's being with someone in the experience, and also encouraging someone when they identify it with themselves, like, oh, I'm troubled, or I'm stressed, or um to, if they find themselves in a situation where they can't internally support themselves, that, reach out for support. That's the most healthiest human thing we can do, is to reach for connection and support, and that's something that's kind of like negated in our society, is made it
oh
into
absolutely
pathology. So, and
yeah
that's really the most healthy thing we can do. It
yeah
shows that when we're able to connect, we're able to come into a sort of equilibrium in our nervous system, in order to do that, to be able to connect with others' hearts, right? And if we can find someone supportive, who can meet us with acceptance, radical acceptance, and not try to fix things for us, but help us just be in presence with us while we're moving through a thing,
Can
right?
you talk about that more? Because I swear that's a simple concept, but I think it's the hardest thing to do. We want to hear somebody's problem, we want to jump in and fix it.
Right,
Generally, the fix has nothing to do with what the real problem is about. But
right,
talk about that. What do you just, somebody is pouring their heart out to you, and you're with them.
right. So, holding space for someone is a way of being in witness with someone. And so it's one of the other things I help people experience is developing their capacity for deep listening. And so this is ability to sit with someone and take in their experience, but also maintaining your own experience and understanding what's happening within you. So this is a dual attention, right?
You're listening to somebody else and you're listening to yourself at the same time.
Right, you're listening to your felt senses. It's not so much with your ears, but it's like
How do you
to all your
feel?
senses. Yes,
They're saying certain things, and how are you feeling when they say
right.
those things?
And so,
But
like in one of my groups just recently, I was describing, uh, if we're in deep listening with someone, and we might, if we have a habit of, trying to fix other people in their experience when that's not really what's being called for, we're really coming out of our own experience and not meeting ourselves where we're feeling that impulse to fix. I mean, so that's just an indication of something that's arising within us that's really about ourselves, right? And what our
oh, so
experience,
the
right?
fix isn't about the other person at all. It's about you're feeling just uncomfortable with the
Yeah,
situation. Something.
right.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so, yeah, this is another way of developing process and finding support for widening one's own nervous system capacity to be with discomfort, right?
I tell you what, you talk about relationship work all over the place. Whether it's parent relationship,
Yeah,
do my daughter talk to her little boys, and she goes, "You're having a really big emotion now, aren't you?" And
yeah,
they've just flung all their toys over the room, and they smack their brother. And she wants to correct the behavior, but she sits down and said, "You're having a really big emotion now, aren't you? Tell me about that."
love that. That's beautiful. That's being in connection and modeling connection and with someone who is not doesn't have the internal supports yet to, you know, move that energy in a productive way, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I also find that people are made wrong for their feelings. You
Right.
angry. I can't tell you how many times I heard that from siblings or parents. You're angry. And I'm like,
Right.
no, I'm not. I'm not angry. But I really am seething inside. And
Right.
the reason I'm seething inside has something to do with my own well-being, my own understanding of the situation.
Right.
That's not heard when somebody says, you're and
Right.
the finger comes out and the blame comes out because I'm having a big emotion that's not something they can live with or deal with.
Exactly right. It's
Yeah.
their own window of tolerance that they're dealing with at that point. And
Yeah, exactly. So you're making, as a child, I was made wrong for my feelings.
yeah,
As an adult, the healing and being in a healing modality, I have to let my feelings be okay, be right. So there's no right and wrong.
right,
There's
exactly. Yeah,
emotions, feelings. And so this listening that you are talking about is letting people be okay in their big emotions.
right.
And that's got to be
So,
huge.
yeah. And, as part of the healing process, I mean, that's a common scenario in our society of being made wrong for having anger or negative emotions, right? And really, these are true emotions we had and we weren't connected with in an appropriate way. We weren't attuned with in order to, sort of move that energy out in a productive way and learn how to do that in a way in connection with someone else. But now coming in as adults and resolving all this, oh, I lost my track.
Well, the resolution is within the person who's having the emotion, not the person who's listening to it.
Yeah, in a way, the resolution is in the connection too, is someone who's holding space, right?
Yeah.
And right, and so being in process and acceptance, I find that that's been the most productive healing for me is no make wrong, right?
Yeah.
There can be like a sort of guidance of like how to use the life force energy productively, basically, right? And rather than as to, have it be a oh, here it is. This is what I was coming to.
Yeah.
Humans are also meant to evolve and grow, and that sort of takes the sort of disruption in one's life, to come out of a pattern. So that's gonna feel like it goes against your programming. And so we come in, we're in a society where even in our school systems, we have to sit still and, and be quiet and,
Yeah.
follow, right. but disruption is also needed to come out of the pattern in order to be able to express things, especially things like anger. And if we've been taught anger is wrong, um, if we allow our anger, we might be able to feel how disruption leads to evolution, right?
Exactly. So let as my daughter watching my grandkids grow up, but I remember with my own kids, as they share their big emotions and they'll come to the root of it, or the essence of what they're upset about, and as they talk about it, they grow. They'll
Yeah,
realize, oh, I know I'm feeling this way, but what I was thinking this was, I'm really angry with my older brother. Well, I'm really angry because he's a jerk. And then I'm angry because I don't like him. And then I'm angry because I said something important
right.
to him and he didn't listen to me. And then all of a sudden we're there.
Right. And so the beautiful thing here that's, out, even thinking beyond, like they're able to come into realization and have this growth, is they're also being met in connection, in supportive connection, which is, for every experience of that they have, they're internalizing this internal support that they can take with them as they grow. And so it's not a gap in their body knowledge of how to deal with very intense emotions, so yeah, I just really feel the beauty of this sort of deep connective and attuned parenting that slows down and says, hey buddy, I see what's happening, they're being connected with and understanding that they're not alone in life. And this is part of our human being. This is we're designed, we're wired for connection. We have relational neurobiology.
We do such a bad job of it. In adults, we rarely connect as adults.
Right.
This one talking head is saying this other talking head is saying that.
Right.
And nobody's letting each other have that space of the expression, and the tensions grow between people. And then, well, you're a jerk, I'm on my own. And I feel like we don't understand connection.
Right.
What that
And
really
that's
is.
it. I think the disconnection it first begins within oneself and not being able to tolerate, a difference in one's own system.
Right.
Right.
Right. Yeah. I see a lot of my clients, and even me being the woman of the age that I am, often don't know what we want. I mean, some people know what they want and they're right in your face, and we're going to do it this way. We got this way. But then but all the rest of us who are listening to them, I lose what I want. And a lot of times in reconnecting people back to their souls, the first thing that I tell them to do to reconnect back to their feelings.
Yeah.
We go to the easy feelings first, the nice ones, and then the negative ones are always there. Because when we're listening to our feelings, we're starting to trust ourselves.
Right.
Where am I going with this? The connection to self is really important. The connection to soul is really important. But I also see the connection to other people. People long for that, and yet other people don't know how to do it.
Right.
And you can just, okay, sometimes I'll listen to somebody talk to me, or I'll see people in relationships where the people who are talking to them aren't saying what they want or what they're needing, but they're sitting there just taking it because it's something. It's better than nothing. So I love what you teach. I really love what you teach, and the concept of listening, meeting people where they are,
Meeting oneself where there are too.
yeah, and then growing from there. I
Right.
feel like what you're talking about is this joy that we're looking for starts with connection and listening, and then ends up possibly in the joy. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Can you say that again? Yeah. I want to
Yeah. So the connection, first you're making a connect. You're upset, or you're off balanced, or you've been traumatized. You connect to the feeling of it, and you're connecting to yourself. You're no longer suppressing it, and there's all the pain and yucky stuff. And as you continue to listen and let it grow, what the message here is that that's not the end. It's continuing to move to the joy.
Right.
And I feel like since we forget how to connect, we also forget how to move to the joy.
Right, right.
And
Yeah.
talk
As a, shamanic practitioner or guide, um, my life has uh, been a lot of shamanic initiation, right? Which can be a very painful type of experience. And one of the learnings in that and developing consciousness around that kind of sort of life that one gets called to in this way, it's it definitely, that pain reveals the joy through ecstatic experience. And to me, ecstasy isn't I define that a little bit more broadly than the general population, right? It's just the pure life force essence of a human emotional experience. So you can be ecstatically angry, right? Like that means just being grounded and surrendered to it. And that's going to reveal the pathways to the joy.
let's go back to that ecstasy concept. You could be ecstatically angry and grounded. So explain that a little bit more. This is really
So the feeling sense for me is right. If I have anger coming up, but if I have judgment in my system, like tying it up, then I'm not able to move it productively, right? Or just even express it. But if I let go and surrender to the experience, you can actually become into an ecstatic state with that life force energy that's coming through. You just that your human experience.
so.
Um,
So let's do that. You got the anger, like again, I'm angry. Then, but then I have the history of somebody's going to be mad at me for being angry. I'm going to be punished
right,
for being
right.
And so, but if I, and so I've internalized a lot of judgment when I'm feeling angry. So I just immediately don't want to let myself feel angry. But if I stopped the reaction and the judgment to the anger and just felt angry, got,
Right.
and
Even
whatever.
with a touch of acceptance and kindness to one's being in it, right?
Right. I know you're angry. Honey, I'm really hearing you. We're all angry. That's,
Right.
whatever. That's the ecstatic. I'm with the anger.
Yeah, and allowing it to inform your body of any impulse that it might be. So no, I'm imagining myself in anger, and it's like it wants to go right. So I move my body, and that way it becomes a dance, right? Basically. So yeah,
So that's ecstatic anger. You're present with it and you're
right,
letting it really move through you.
right,
And
and just like in allowing the emotional experience can reveal that pathway to joy.
yeah. So as my little grandson said, finally got to the core issue of I'm so angry because I said something important to him and he wouldn't listen to me, hurt me so much. That could go finally in a place where I want to connect to my brother and
Yeah,
mom
yeah,
can say, brother, come here.
right,
Were you
right.
listening to him? Because he's been playing with you all day. And did you the interaction would be the little guy would say, I told you, I blah blah blah. And the older boy, I wasn't paying attention at all. I wasn't even thinking about that. And
Yeah,
so the stuffed animal, I told you I wanted to play with the stuffed animal. Can I now play with it? And the older guy's going, I didn't even know that was an issue. And so
right,
the stuffed animal ends up in the little brother's hand. So but would never have happened. There would just be this resentment, which we see in
right.
siblings all the time. Even adult siblings is what I'm trying to get to is understand is he was feeling how he's feeling and
Yeah,
able to express this is how I'm feeling. I'm not mad because I didn't get chocolate milk. I'm not mad because the crayons were broken. I'm mad because of this specific thing. And I'm
right.
wondering if we could get to that point as adults. What are you really angry about? What's really bugging you? And come to a place where you say, here's how I'm really feeling. And it has nothing to do with what I'm reacting to, saying, or how I'm behaving. It's really this issue here.
Yeah, I think part of that would be like that sort of connection where there's no judgment but radical kindness and radical acceptance, and it drops into the body and things start to slow down, and so that and being in connection with another helps one sort of come back in their nervous system to sort of a balance energy in order to just connect, with the language expression of their experience, right? It really, I feel like it starts with connection,
Now,
a supportive connection.
with supportive connection, I feel, and when I ask you this,
Hmm.
the supportive connection, you're really listening to something. and then it's heard.
Yes.
And then the emotion goes away because it's heard.
Right.
And then once it goes away, what's the next thing could be my grandson was playing with the purple stuffed animal and he was having a great time. And an adult, you've been really clear with this anger, this frustration, or this loss within yourself, and it's expressed. When we get down to how we really feel, is that the energy and then that's emotions and energy moving along. And then at that point, are you moving to joy? Are you moving to, does your body follow you along, or is your body going to kind of stick with that anger, or will your body be able to let go?
Right. When, when someone, that this is part of like the process of moving energy out, and then that brings us back a sort of state of well-being again, and being in connection with someone. And as I said before, like the emotions are meant to move out, and so being connected with, feeling heard, even if you're not agreed with, but if someone is like, yeah, I heard that, I mean, I might have a different experience, but but to allow the experience of the other to uh, that helps the person to move the energy, so that it's actually being expressed and moved out of the energy system.
So it's almost,
it becomes resolved.
Yeah, it's resolved. You're not necessarily agreeing with each other or having, but you're resolving it because you've been heard.
Right, and connected with.
Connect with the person who's hearing you. That's really interesting. And then they're, once the energy and emotions are moved out of the way, we have an open door for experiencing other things.
Yeah.
Like joy.
Yeah.
But yeah. So that's what you told me, we were talking earlier in some of the things you wrote to me. It's like, it's a process. It's not a command. And I read that and it just hit me very cleanly. It's like, I want to talk about that because you just described a process. You didn't describe like, what's the matter with you? Be happy. You're talking,
right.
you're talking about something totally different.
Right.
So you said a higher level healer will know how to attune to a person's state of being and respond appropriately to it. Maybe the person needs, to be where they are. However, you're allowing the process of opening up. So let's and to get to a place of where's the
that again, in our culture we can be very goal oriented, right? And so it's like, check, I'm happy, right? And that's not really how it works. Life is a process, right? And so I find in healing culture sometimes, I've seen like healers tell someone, let go, right? It's like, that's a process. It's not a command. Letting go is a process of being met and understanding one's own wisdom so that it doesn't keep coming up again, and being supported in that. And so, letting go is actually the natural outcome of being in process, rather than someone say, let go, and you're being like, okay, I let it go. Like, not really.
Let go first, you let go last. Is that what you're
right? So,
I've heard people do it as spiritual bypass. You're skipping the process, but you want to get to the other end. I don't want to feel this way anymore.
Right. But, as soon as you disconnect from the feeling, you're not really banishing it to, out of your body. It's being stored for resolution later.
And then later.
It's being recycled. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, we're going to, even with a small child, it's like, we're going to talk about this later. And so they're really hanging on, waiting to be talked about. And then all of a sudden it's bedtime and they're crying.
Yeah.
And you forget why they're crying, but that promise, that broken promise is there. Right. And it'll take a minute to say, wait a minute, you said you were going to talk about, how my bike is broken. And well, I'm tired. We'll talk about it tomorrow. And it's deferred connection.
Right.
And that can cause a lot of sadness and even trauma, I would think.
Yeah, if they weren't met, and if they're in a state of anxiety and then that's not being supported or met, and it's like, just go to sleep. We'll take care of it later. But if that's something that's really a big thing for them in their system, that's not necessarily something that can be put aside just to go to sleep. That might keep them up all night, especially for a young developing nervous system, right?
I know, but we do that to ourselves all the time.
Yeah.
Have some unresolved things that happen during the day. I'm like, it's not going to happen. But maybe there can be an inner exchange, an inner dialogue, or if you're with a partner, or if you're with
Right.
other people that are close around, you say, okay, I can't go to sleep until I have to make this connection around this. And we're not
Right.
going to resolve it. Obviously, it's 10 o'clock at night. But if I go to sleep and think you're still ignoring me on this, I'm not going to sleep.
Yeah.
Or, and that could be just like, I didn't finish a project and I said that I was going to make this email and finish this project, and I haven't been able to get to it. That's so stressful.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
How do I connect to myself? What would you tell me to connect with that ongoing?
Oh yeah, that ongoing finger wagging, internalized
Yeah,
finger wagging.
it's not resolved. I've been
Right.
saying I'm going to resolve this today, and then there's no possible way it got resolved. The next day, it's like, and that's life, right?
Yeah.
So you're living in a constant deferment of happiness, because I'm not going to be happy till this thing is done.
So here's another practice or way of being with someone who's in a chronic stressed state, right? Is have them drop into the part of their body that's informing them of the stress or tension, and then have them maybe find another place in their body that's more pleasurable or even neutral, right? And just sort of like switch the attention from one to the other, and that somehow creates a, instead of it just being like, oh, this is my experience, but you can find, oh, I can hold both types of experiences, and maybe I might be able to tune my attention a little more here so that I can productively rest, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, my left hip is killing me, but my ankle's fine.
Right.
So they're
Right.
whatever.
Yeah, that could be a thing. It's like, no, yeah, finding a way to, maybe that's another shamanic consciousness growth area, is how to command one's own attention, right?
Yeah.
Intentionally.
Like that. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes I hold them in the cup of my hands. I'll hold this
Yeah.
frustration is it here, and then I'll have, well, and this really whatever you want to call it, calmness or
Right.
whatever, and I will,
Yeah.
who's louder and who needs to be louder, and how can I balance them out?
Right.
And sometimes when I let the anxiety get really, really loud, so it's the whole everything, I can start to hear, oh, geez, that's that's what you're really telling me. And then I'll let it get quieter, but then the peace and calm will come out really loud.
Right.
And then I balance them out, because, and that helps calm me down.
Yeah.
It still doesn't. Yeah.
Being able to just expand one's own tolerance for the oppositions in oneself can help the experience be less of a tsunami and more like a ripple, right? So
Exactly. Because we're not going to get rid of, we're adults, we're adulting,
yeah.
and there's so many things that aren't resolved, or that just seem to go on forever.
Right.
And I mean, let's name some of the things that are going on forever that we just can't resolve. But I think it would be always have to pay taxes. They don't
Right.
go.
Yeah.
Or maybe somebody who's having a chronic health problem.
Yeah.
Or, and election season's coming up.
Yeah. Right.
And
bigger than me type things that are global in scope, right? Even those kind of things.
Boston Harbor's flooded again. Well, what? And so managing those.
Yeah.
So that they're not taking over. And so let's talk about that for a minute, shamanically. We're managing some pretty big stuff right now.
Yeah. So I just have a feeling sense of like just how to command my attention such that I can feel the groundedness of my own body, my indigeneity, and how I'm connected, to myself, to others, to ground, earth, right, nature, the divine. To find that place again, this is another kind of glimmer experience of calling in a glimmer so that I can meet the moment that's right in front of me in the moment, even with everything going on. And I'm even shamanically, if I might feel called to do a drumming journey or visioning experience, to locate even the pains of the earth, of like what's in the aura of the earth, and just meeting that place with heart and compassion. And one of my guides is Kuan Yin, right? She who hears the sorrows of the world, right? And so, like, one of the experiences she taught me was like bringing me out to this global cosmic space that is able to hear all the griefs, but not internalize it. It becomes a transpersonal experience rather than a personal experience.
Oh,
And it actually becomes soothing at that point, right? To be able to connect and with heart to, global suffering, expanded awareness of suffering. Um,
love that. Love that.
so
And
that's like finding a connection, and support through spirit, right? And even through my own body as a vessel, that's already an expression of root.
yeah, yeah. I really like that. Transpersonal, just taking it's the spirit, the joy,
Right,
the glimmering from the spirit connection.
right, right. And
You're-
then, kind of the next step from having that transpersonal, transcendent type of experience is now to take that feely sense of well-being that brought in, taking it into my everyday, right? As a practical application of what just happened, right? So I'm not just escaping out there and having, an escapism kind of like experience, but I'm actually integrating it as I'm walking this earth as well.
Right.
So how to be alive more and more as an ecstatic person, right?
Right. As an ecstatic person, I'm so happy and it's pouring out. But you're feeling how you're feeling in that moment. You said you do breath work,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I do is breathe. It's just things are just a little bit too much, and I take myself away and I breathe
Yeah.
and hold and out. And I'm not alone. I'm not handling this by myself. I feel this way. And so breath is one of the tools that I use.
Yeah.
And I just like either I'm blowing up a balloon. I don't stop until I feel a shift.
Right.
And that's,
Yeah, it's definitely a practice that helps one come into their body, come to the pace of their body's being. And so that's a grounding type of experience when we come to the pace of our body. It's going to be slower than what the pace of our mind is, right? And that, when we're at the pace of our mind, that's really fast, and it's like over there, over there, over there. It's in the past, it's in the future. But if we slow down, there's just value in the pacing, right? And coming into the center of our heart, and especially where breathing, we have our lungs expanding and contracting. It's really massaging our heart center, right? When we're breathing, and we can
and
start
getting,
to find the inner dance of that.
yeah, the inner dance. And you're not in the past that's chasing you. You're not trying to figure out what you can't figure out. You're
Right,
just here.
right.
And,
And
and
that's where we can resource from the most, is from our presence of where we're at right now.
yeah, I realize that. Well, my mind isn't wrapped up and busy with the fears or the anxieties or the um, expectations or whatever. I'm just breathing now, and my brain shifts. The brain waves shift.
Right, right,
I get access to the more
right.
creative aspect
Yeah.
of myself when I'm calmer. Obviously, that seems so simply said, but it's
Oh,
simply
I
true.
know.
Yeah, I did want to take just a short little break and say, you can find Raena at her professional Facebook page, which is Raena Wilson, correct?
Yes.
And then you can also find her on her website is thepearlsflame.com. And would love for you guys to check her out. And even we still have a few more minutes on the show if you want to just check her out, and so you can get a feel for her, because I always bring people on the show who are available and will be available. So whenever you're listening to this show, please please check this woman out. She's amazing. You have breath workshops, and you have tell me some of the things that you do.
So the experiential groups that I do, I have a shamanic dream work circle. That's bi-monthly now. It's a 2-hour event, and it's a dream share. And it's not so much about interpreting dreams, but it's about developing relationship more and more through, you know, our dream experiences and accessing our dream body processes, right? For wisdom, and how to find, you know, uh, practical applications for the messages that are coming through us and, you know, through the dream time from spirit or realms or the dream time realms. And we do this in community. And so it just becomes a great big weaving of expanding consciousness and developing intuition and creating soul connection. It's a beautiful experience.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah. And then breath work, I just have a somatic shamanic approach, that's trauma informed and empathic support. Um, and just people just really drop in, and I just love, and this happens almost every time, that people get an experience of themselves that really lets them know that how alive they are, right? They're just attuned to some deep truth, like, oh my God, I'm alive. Like there's a tension that was just released, right? Whether it was emotional, physical, spiritual, intellectual, they find a path revealed to them that opens them up to, through a grounded way, how to be in connection on a lot of different levels.
So these events are in New Hampshire. And
It's in like I have them running at local. To me, I'm in Dover, New Hampshire. Yoga studio. It's like 15 minutes from my house, but it's just 2 seconds over the border in Maine, in Berwick.
oh, Berwick, Maine. Okay.
Yeah.
And for those who are no, not even close to Berwick, Maine, can they reach out to you? Can you do some of that work with people individually?
Oh,
Say, oh,
I definitely do private sessions, and they can be virtual as well. Yeah, I offer that. Even with my breathwork group, I have it's a hybrid virtual in-person
oh,
event.
wonderful. So it's all on your website at
Yes.
thepearlsflame.com. I
Yeah.
really recommend whenever you're listening to this to look at thepearlsflame.com. I'm sure it's going to be up there for many years to come.
Yeah.
and reach out. I feel like Raina's you've got your finger on shifting from trauma and creating a new story is what
Yeah.
I'm hearing you
Being in a
say.
beautiful life.
Being in a beautiful life. Is there anything else you want to add?
Well,
After
thank you so much for inviting me here and being able to share experience with you and chat about all of these, yeah, integrative experiences that we've just talked about, and how to be in connection with each other and with the self as well. So,
so I
as a
love,
path of healing.
yeah, I love that. And my biggest takeaway is the connection and what that connection, what that really means to be connected.
Right.
It means listening without tender, with your hooks in the person, listening, being present for them and listening, and then allowing that person to move through what they're saying as you gently listen to them.
And even allowing oneself to go through what you're going through as you're experiencing listening. It's just like, it's being able to hold multiple processes at the same time that might be in conflict or opposition with each other. So that helps to widen the nervous system's capacity as well,
Well,
the more we develop that skill.
yeah. And then what was the other, we talked about a couple other things, connection to self, but also breathing and calming and letting yourself get to that calm moment so that the creative aspect can be louder than the shrinking in fear concept
Right.
do every day. Yeah. And what are some stories or some examples that you have seen somebody in one position and transform to something else? What is
Ooh, I do have a story to share on this, and it relates even to joy and being in glimmers, but I didn't really name it in the process. However, this one time I was invited into a youth meditation group, and I guess they've been regularly running it, but they had like a sort of like some off time, and they were just getting back into it. So I was invited in, as well as another, and um, there was this really talented young girl, like 11 years old, who was known to lead visualization experience, like channel it in the moment and take everyone on a meditative experience. However, with this being coming back from a period of time, she's very highly sensitive, right? And there's new people like me and another in the group, and so she was anxious, and the facilitator is like, okay, go ahead, and she just like collapsed with anxiety. And her mom was online with her, and she's like, she can do it, she's just very anxious, that sometimes happens. There's a lot of focus on the anxiety. And then so the facilitator just he tuned in, and he's like, oh yes, we don't have to do this right now. And then he did a little bit of exercise, and then we had breakout groups, and I was in with this girl, right? And so we had our assignment to share, and they began to share. And the mother was like very kind of focused. And this is very common in our society, to be like, oh, that's anxiety. And there's a lot of kind of like, we don't want to be in anxiety, and she can really do it. And I was just really sensitive to her daughter sense of anxiety in the moments. And to be hearing these words is because it's like, don't be anxious, and so I just responded. I'm like, yeah, sometimes anxiety happens, and that's a really totally understandable and appropriate way to respond to a situation like this. And then and so, I could tell that like she wasn't really shifting, just because there's such focus on her anxiety, and which is not really an allowance for her to have it. And so, besides me just noticing and naming it, like, yeah, anxiety is a normal response, and then I was just looking at the screen. It was on Zoom, and I noticed they had the cartoony hats on from the Zoom feature. And so I was just like, I just dismissed the assignment. I was just like, well, how do you get those hats on your, and I was just like pretending like I don't know anything about Zoom. And she just popped up, and she's like, oh, this is how you do it. And I started to, try on different hats, and we started to have play. And so here's the bringing in the joy without saying, find the joy, but it's like connecting to her sense of joy. When we're in a sense of play, right, we can become more curious and more grounded and more open to like moving into new experiences, right? So just engaging her sense of curiosity through play, and just like we had a lot of giggles around the kind of different hats we were trying on. And then it was time to get out and rejoin the circle. And we were sharing our experience of the breakout room. She's like, I had a lot of fun with Raena, and I'm ready to do the meditation now. So yeah, it just took a moment for her to ground into the part of her that knows herself through play and experience, and joy.
Oh,
Yeah.
how lovely. Oh, touches my heart.
Yeah.
So next time I'm fuss budgeting, I'll just let myself fuss budget and play.
Yeah.
Then
Yeah,
maybe
definitely. Play is so important, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
Even for us adults.
Oh my God. I got a sketchbook out the other day. Been learning this, I don't know what you call it, but it's like this drawing. You just draw, and it's supposed to connect the neural pathways. It's
Oh, cool.
it's very fun. But I don't have a full understanding of it. I just watched somebody do it real quick on a Instagram thing. And so I started doing it because I've been stressed out. And so I take a theme, one theme, and for some reason, just getting the colors in there, and then getting the lines to be how I like them, was so relaxing.
Yeah.
Yes. It really was. It took me away and put me into a creative spot. So playing, yes, I so recommend play at the end of the day, or stop and play in the middle of the day.
Giggles release chi, right? That's what laughter does. It just releases the chi, lets it flow. So definitely.
So, well, I think we're coming to the end of this, and Raena, so grateful to came on to talk about this. It's just been a lovely conversation. Hope we can talk again sometime.
I would love that. Thank you.
Yeah. So guys, go to thepearlsflame.com or go on Facebook, Raena Wilson's her professional page, and make friends and see what she's up to. There's a lot of stuff going on in her offerings, and really appreciate so much. So for now, I'm going to say end of the episode. And we'll till we meet again. Thank you so much, Raena.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining the Angelscapes podcast. We hope you've gained new insights and inspiration for your journey to uncover and access your soul's power. For more information and a deeper dive into finding clarity in your life, go to angelscapes.com. Remember to subscribe so you can be part of the discussion. It may just change your life. See you next time.